The taste of communism.
Are you a uni student or an early professional with no real time, money, or skills? You've come to the right goddamn place. Welcome to The Bad Chef. Fast and cheap meals for fast and cheap people.
My name is Chi, and I'm a bad chef. Now, I know as an Australian, saying that it's cold outside doesn't hold that much water. But our country is built for 40-degree heat, so when it comes to winter, we're usually woefully underprepared. So, in the absence of good domestic heating, our strategy for coping with the winter is to overeat on something that's hot, creamy, and filling, to build up the insulating layer of fat in time for hibernation. And who better to ask about hibernation than the Russians? So today, we're making Stroganoff. Interestingly, the widely accepted origin story of Stroganoff was that it was made by a French chef working for the Stroganoff family in Russia in 1891. And of course, there's been a million billion different variations ever since. But the one that I'm going to cook today is strictly not traditional, as per usual. In traditional stroganoff, you'd usually use some sort of steak. So you'd sear it first, cut it up, and then cook it to completion for a very short amount of time in the gravy. But today we're going to use a fattier, more resilient and cheaper cut of steak as well, so we could slow cook it. So today we're going to make a real low and slow, sexy sort of stroganoff. You know me, I love a good low and slow. I mean, you get something insanely tender out of a relatively cheap cut of steak. And you get incredible flavor from it because you let it develop continuously for the 8 hours at a slow cooking, rather than letting it simmer on the stove for only 40 minutes. But enough talk, let's go. Let's go.
With your ingredients, you'll need about 1.5 kilos of chuck steak, 2 large onions, about half an entire garlic, a bit of oil and butter, a solid handful of flour, say about half a cup to 3/4 of a cup, most of a jar of Dijon mustard, 1 litre of some form of beef stock, 375 mils of sour cream, don't get the low fat one, and a shitload of white mushrooms, like about half a kilo, plus salt and pepper to taste. To prep, you just dice the onions, give the garlic a rough chop, then trim and dice the beef into inch-thick cubes. It's better to go thick here. If it's too small, the insides dry out too easily during the slow cooking process. Then, season the beef generously with salt and pepper and cover with a layer of flour. Don't worry if there's some extra flour, that'll help thicken the gravy a little later on. Once all that is done, it's time to cook. Now, when it comes to cooking, if you have a casserole, that's a great option. But for me, I'm using an all-metal stock pot. This stock pot is like a cheaper version of the casserole that you can still put into the oven, which is perfect for slow cooks like this. So, to cook, heat up a heavy pan with some oil in it and sear the beef off aggressively. Do this in batches to avoid overcrowding the pan. Putting too much of the pan will cool the pan off, which boils your meat instead of searing it, and that kinda sucks. Set each batch aside as they finish browning. While you're doing the beef, you can also do the onions and garlic in parallel. Start your stock pot on medium-high heat with some oil and butter, then brown off the onions and garlic. When they look relaxed, add in the beef and a splash of cooking sherry. When the alcohol is cooked off, add in the beef stock, bring it up to a gentle simmer, then add in the mustard. Stir that in until the mustard is all dissolved, then add a few bay leaves and thicken with flour.
Now, with my stroganoff, there's also one little secret ingredient that I like to use as well. And in line with the Russian theme, it's a shot vodka. And the reason why we use vodka is because once the alcohol evaporates off completely, the rest of it acts like an emulsifier. And what that does, it drags all the fat-attached compounds to the water-attached compounds and lets them mix up really well. So it'll make for like a really creamy, silky sauce. And that's pretty good. But also, at X amount of dollars per bottle, it's quite an expensive undertaking for just a simple textural change. So this is highly optional. I mean, the whole sauce is optional. Everything's optional.
Once that's back up to a simmer, taste it, and make whatever adjustments you need. Then, it's pretty much ready to go into the hot box at 90 degrees C for at least 4 hours, but preferably 8. Before it comes out of the oven, there's just a little bit more to do.
Alrighty! At this point in time, the stroganoff has been sitting inside the oven for about 4 hours now, and it should be done. So now it's time to do the heart and soul of the dish, the mushrooms. Look, for the mushrooms, if you can't be asked, you could just slice them up at the start, chuck them all into the same pot, and then send it into the oven with everything else. But there are two major issues with this. The first is that the mushrooms will release all the water into the stew, and that'll dilute the stew a little bit, and that's no good. And the second thing is, if the mushrooms lose all their water, there's no water inside the mushrooms themselves, so they'll shrivel up and kind of sad and shitty. So I'd rather not do that either. If you can overlook that, that's fine, but for me, because I'm a finicky asshole, I'm gonna fry them up instead.
To do your mushrooms, give your mushrooms a bit of a wash, then slice or halve them. Heat up a solid amount of olive oil, then add your mushrooms. Cook them down until they've settled a bit, then add some salt and pepper. To give it a bit of a glaze, add a splash of that cooking sherry from before, then cook down your mushrooms until they've fully relaxed. Then they're pretty much done. In addition to that, we're also going to be serving our stroganoff with some pasta today, so we'll just boil that off real quick while we're doing our mushrooms. Now we're ready for the finishing touches to our sauce. Take the pot out of the oven. Remember the sour cream? Dump a whole cup of it into the sauce. Now stir it. Stir it gently, like you're rocking a baby to sleep, and then bring it back up to temperature and we're ready to plate.
Alright, here we go. This is a tenderness test, just to make sure that it's doing what it needs to do. Oh my lord. You see that? Steak you can cut with a spoon.
Plate it! Plate it, plate it, plate it, plate it, plate it. Look at it! Look at it. It's so silky and smooth and creamy. Look at those mushrooms. Damn! Dollop that sour cream onto it, you dirty boy. Sprinkle that green chive shit on it. I love it!
Oh my god. Oh, I'm so ready to go into hibernation right now. Look, I don't care about health right now. It's fatty, it's decadent, it's creamy, it's silky, it's filling, it's satisfying. Whew. This meal would make you pump out body heat like a space heater for the next couple of hours. So if you have a partner who runs cold, this is a perfect winter meal for turning you into the cuddliest radiator that I'm sure your partner will love. Hypothetically anyway, I'm just guessing, I have no idea what that feels like. But hey, if you're aggressively single like I am, you can put that on your Tinder CV. It can make a hot creamy sauce that fills you right up. Oh no, that's a bad sentence. Anyway, in terms of cost, the entire pot was just a little bit shy of $40, and that's including the pasta and the mushrooms and the chives and everything. And that's good for about 6 to 8 very solid meals, which works out to be roughly $6 a meal. And as far as domestic heating bills go, $6 isn't too shabby at all. Not to mention it's much tastier than what you'd get if you licked a power outlet. So yeah, that was it. That was a 8-hour slow cooked beef stroganoff. Whew, I'm going into a food coma. Just, if you don't mind me, I'm just gonna have a nap right here.